Hello my friends, I'm going to show you how I make bow staves.
Hello my friends, this is two logs. I had them cut at 6 foot in length. It was a 12-foot log, and these are shagbark hickory, and I chose what seemed to be the straightest grain that I could find, and I'm going to rive this wood, split it, and use it for making bow staves and lacrosse stick handles. Here's the end of the log, and I put a line on it, and what I did is I found a area that was checking, and it's a real fine crack. So I'm going to start my split on that crack, and I'm going to try to follow this line. The check is on this side here, and I'm using a wedge that's the thinnest. You can see the crack starting to run.
When making a bow, you want to rive the wood. Riving the wood will give you a much stronger bow with less chance of breakage. Riving is a term used when you are splitting the wood and letting that crack run its own course along the grain. The checking that I'm cracking or splitting on now is radial lines that protrude from the center of the heartwood out to the outside edge of the bark. And a lot of times you can see this. These are radial lines. You can see this in the pattern of the bark. It will be vertical lines. Sometimes when you're looking at a log at the bark, and you'll see that the bark has a tendency where it looks like it's turning at a diagonal or spiral around a tree. The grain and wood underneath that bark is going to be following the same way. These are the type of logs that you want to be avoiding. You want to look at the bark where it has straight lines continuing perfectly vertical up and down the trunk of the tree. Hickory is a very straight grain and very strong wood that can take a lot of shock and impact. It's used for axe handles, sledgehammer handles, hammer handles. And for a bow, you want to be using the sapwood, which is the white part of the wood. Now, one of the best woods for making bows is the Osage orange. However, the sapwood in the Osage orange has a tendency to want to break. So you want to avoid all the sapwood and use only the heartwood, which is different than working with hickory. Making staves from a large diameter log will give you superior bow staves. And the reasoning for that is the circular annular rings will be closer to being flat. If it was a small diameter, you would have a pretty large crowning effect on the outside diameter. The closer that you are to being flat, the stronger the finished bow is going to be. Now I'm splitting these staves into billets or blanks that are about 1.5 to 2 inches in thickness and diameter. Now for properly seasoning, as a rule, what you want to do is let the wood dry. 1 year for every inch in thickness. So these staves would probably take 1.5 to 2 years to properly dry. Now, you can work the wood a lot quicker, and what you want to do is take your staves and work your blank down close to the size of a bow, and that will cut the physical dimensions down, and you can get your drying down much quicker. There's other ways of speeding up the process also.
When you make the split, this is where you could use an axe to cut these. Okay, the next split we want to do will be half these, and that'll make these into quarters. The bow material is going to be this white area. That's the sapwood. That'll make the better bow. The inside, the dark, I'm going to save that, and I'm going to use that for making the cross sticks. It's not as critical as a bow. Not going to take the same flexing. Now I need to get a start this way. And I use my pointier wedge.
This fresh cut log, it's considered green wood. It has a moisture content of about 35%. So 35% of this weight is water. So drying the wood, it's going to be a lot lighter. The ways to dry this, you can steam bend, which I do a lot when I want to recurve. And with steam bending, you put your wood in your steam generator and you let it soak in the steam at a rate of 1 hour for every 1 inch in thickness. So this 2-inch stave, provided I didn't cut it down closer to its shape, should be in the steam for about 2 hours. You don't want to over steam your wood. That can cause problems with the lignin that holds the wood cells together to give way too easy and cause buckling in the bending process. So you adhere to the time frame. When it comes out of the steam box, you let it in its form and dry, possibly a day or two, and then when you remove it, it's going to hold its shape permanently. And the moisture content at that time is going to be close to the 12% at which you want the wood to be finished. So in that hour or two of steaming, it will have seasoned the wood as if it was aged for 1.5 to 2 years. If by chance you over dry the wood and say, for example, get it down to about 5%, do not string your bow and shoot it. Leave the bow set and age and acclimate again to its environment, and it will naturally go back to the 12% moisture content. So that's a nice built-in feature with the wood. When looking at the end grain of your wood, you're going to see the annular rings. You'll see 2 rings, a dark and a light, side by side. This is one season's growth. Early season wood is going to be a light color. The late season is going to be a darker color. The darker color has more elasticity to it than the light color. Choose a wood with small, light-colored early spring growth and thicker late season growth for the better bow stave.
This is the bow material here. This should make 2 staves. Now I want to split this off. And you want to split this so it'll be drying at a uniform rate. If you don't split it, it'll run checking. And that checking can ruin the stave. If you notice, I split from the other side, and that's because the riving took it into the sapwood. Okay, now this piece will be making me 2 staves.
To control this next split, I don't want it to rive into the sapwood, so I'm moving the wedge closer to the center of the heartwood, which is near the point. Now the splitting is going to go in the direction of the side that bends more, and that first time the sapwood was flexing, the heartwood was staying stiffer. So if you leave a little more of the heartwood onto that stave material, it'll split straighter or split in towards the center of the heart.
Beautiful.
When you're shaping your bow, it's perfectly all right to leave heartwood on the belly of the bow. That section is going to be under compression. The sapwood is stronger under tension, so the sapwood is always the back to the bow. Most people, when they're choosing a log for their bow staves, usually choose around an 8-inch diameter log. This would give them 4 quarters, which would make a bow for each quarter. This log is much larger, and it will yield 2 staves for each quarter. The reason that people are choosing smaller diameter is usually because of the weight of the log. Here I'm not handling the log, I'm not lifting it. I split it into its individual staves, and then I can handle those.
Here's the bow staves, maybe about 1 hour of splitting. Some good, some bad, mostly good. And right here you can see here's one that would have been bad. And this is all the heartwood. We'll make use of it some way. And now this can be seasoned or worked into a stave and steam bent, and that would have it at the proper moisture content. Being split this way, it should dry without checking. I'm leaving the bark on, a little bit of the heartwood still attached, and looks like it's ready to go.
Thanks for watching, my friends. Bye-bye.